Welcome to Whiskey's a Journey. My name is Peter Faciano, and today is Monday, which means it is my series on single barrel bourbons. Now, if you've been watching my channel for a while, I've been going through a series of single barrel bourbons. I have 4 more left, and then this series is completed, and I'm moving on to something else. Haven't figured out what that is just yet, but I'll figure it out. Today, we're going to be taking a look at Chestnut Farms Kentucky Straight Bourbon whiskey. Like I mentioned, it's a single barrel. This is coming in at 125 proof, which is a 62.5% ABV. It says it right here on the label that it is a non-chilled filtered. It's from the Barton 1792 Master Distillers. I paid $149.99 in Phoenix, Arizona, and it's a 750 milliliter bottle. Let's go ahead and open this sucker up. Nose it, pour it, taste it, talk about it a little bit. I mean, a very little bit, not a whole lot of information on it. And then if you stick around until the end, I'm going to give it a score. Just taking the lid off here, the little cork here, I'm getting lots of cherry. All right, let's get this thing on the nose. All right, it smells like a bourbon, that's for sure. Lots of ethanol. There is cherry, and there's a good amount of spice, like cinnamon spice. I think your typical bourbon notes are all there, the vanilla, the brown sugar, and the caramels, but not so much honey. But I do get a dominant note of cherry and cinnamon. Nothing else really to take note of, so let's get that first sip down, see what I think. Right up front, definitely get hit with the ethanol. The cherry note is there, vanilla, brown sugar. That cinnamon spice is a little bit towards the back end. Really good amount of barrel tannin or barrel char on the side. And it's a pretty hot finish. All of those initial notes stick with me from the arrival to the mid palate to the finish. They don't seem to change that much. Not a very complex bourbon. I don't think you really need to dive very deep to get these traditional bourbon notes. It's just typical, just a typical bourbon with a high ABV. Let me go ahead and double check that, get that second sip down, and I really do want to concentrate on if there's anything else nuanced in here. Nope. Pretty much straightforward. Get a hit with that ethanol, vanilla, brown sugar, caramel, barrel tannin, cherry, a little bit bitter on the back end there, much more bitter on that second sip than the first, that's for sure. I don't know if you heard that or not, but my phone just went off. I'm not really prepared to talk about this just yet, but my mom passed away on Saturday, the 13th of January. I don't know what it is about January and people passing away in my life, but that'll come later. She had I guess I am talking about it, but she had a terminal brain tumor, and she passed away peacefully at 4 o'clock in the morning on Saturday. All right, so what I'm getting here is pretty much basically a high proof, typical bourbon. Like I had mentioned earlier, nothing really seems to develop from the arrival to mid palate to the finish. It all seems to be just those typical bourbon notes, nothing more, nothing less. It's basically straightforward. And even though this is 124 proof, and I would imagine that the finish would be rather long or hot, it really doesn't have much of a lingering finish. Yes, it is hot and it is spicy, and I do get barrel tannin on the side, but it really doesn't linger around all that much. So what I'm going to do next is add some water. I do believe it can handle quite a bit. And if you are familiar with Chestnut Farms, let me know in the comments down below if any of this information is misleading or if I got something wrong. There wasn't really necessarily a lot of information online about this. I read a couple of articles, looked at a couple of reviews, and basically what I found out is even though this was distilled, aged, and bottled by Clear Springs Distilling Company, this distillery is owned by Sazerac, and they specifically use this distillery for the Total Wine & More brand, and Chestnut Farms, according to what I read, is the Total Wine & More brand. So they use that distillery for, basically like Kirkland has their own brand, and I think Trader Joe's has their own brand. Total Wine has theirs, and I believe that's why when you go into Total Wine & More, they end up pushing you towards this. And since it is a Barton 1792 distillery, my guess is, and the research that I've done, is suggesting that the mash bill on this is 1792. So we're looking at 74% corn, 18% rye, and 8% barley. And that is pretty much it for the information. Again, if you know anything else additional to that, Let me know in the comments down below, because this is very elusive as far as trying to get information. So let's do another coat here. Roll it around in the glass, give it one more nose, one more taste, one more sip, and then let's give it a score. All right, adding water brought out a slight amount of banana, which I did not get initially. That cherry note is still there, and all of the traditional bourbon notes as well. All right, let's get it on the palate. All right, it calmed down the ethanol. More of the banana note is there. The cherry is still there. That cinnamon spice note is definitely coming through a little bit more now with the water. It thinned it out quite a bit. I don't really have much of viscosity happening in the mouth like I did earlier, and I didn't mention that, but it did stick around a little bit in the mouth without the water. And to be quite honest, my initial impression with the water, I like this slightly more with the water than without. I think it takes that ethanol edge off of it just a little bit, and the bourbon that's in here shines through a little bit more. Although the finish is now a little bit medium to long, and that finish is a little bit too bitter for my taste. But those initial bourbon notes I like, but the finish, not necessarily a big fan of. So if you are new here, my scoring system is out of 5 stars. And all of my Monday series that I've been doing over the history of this channel, I have been giving my scores based on the individual series that I've been doing. So I'm not going to compare this bottle and the score to the other types of whiskeys that I've done in the past. This is going to be based solely on the single barrels that I've reviewed. And because of the typical bourbon notes, the cherry, the slight amount of banana with the water, that ethanol heat, that bitter finish, the price that this bottle costs, and based on my palate, how this does not really necessarily develop into anything, it's consistent from the arrival to the mid palate to the finish. Having a medium finish, all of that's gonna come together, and I'm gonna actually give this a 2.5. That might sound a little bit harsh, but based on the price and other single barrels that I've had, them offering more for much less money, I have to factor in cost, especially with this bottle. And that's how I'm arriving at the 2.5. I don't really think that there's anything wrong with this. When you drink it, you know you're drinking a bourbon, and if that's what you're looking for, I think this actually offers those typical bourbon notes. But at the price that they're asking and the simplicity of just a typical bourbon, the short finish without the water, and then the bitterness with the water is all coming together for a score of 2.5. I'd be curious to hear from anybody that has had this before. Let me know in the comments down below what you think of it. And I'm not just talking about the single barrel. If you've had any Chestnut Farm offering or any Chestnut Farm bottle, let me know in the comments down below what you think of it. If you're new here and you like this type of information, do me a favor, like the video. If you're not subscribed to the channel, do me a favor and subscribe to the channel. Just go ahead and click on that little subscribe button down there. And actually, this video is coming out the day after my bourbon or whiskey anniversary. Not my channel anniversary, but my whiskey anniversary. My brother-in-law, John, and I jumped on keto a little bit. I think it was in 2022. We jumped on keto, and I went over to his house and I brought 4 bottles of whiskey, which I'm going to be doing on my channel anniversary, my 2-year channel anniversary. I'm going to be looking at the 4 bottles that I brought over to his house. We jumped on keto and we still wanted to drink, but we didn't want to drink beer. So I brought over some bottles of whiskey, and that basically started my journey. So stay tuned for that. So that's going to do it. Wherever you're at in your journey, I hope you are enjoying it. And until the next time, we'll talk to you later. Bye.